Hi, my name's Daryl Forte. I'm the owner of Everlast Software. My wife Lori is a member of doTERRA, and she sells doTERRA, and she has to collect information from various clients. And sometimes this includes social security numbers, birth dates, driver's licenses, and of course credit card information. And since I teach cybersecurity seminars through Lincoln Land at the Capital City Training Center, she was wondering if I'd be willing to share some of my advice for other people that are in doTERRA on how to collect information. And really this information is going to work for any type of business that has to collect data that's sensitive. So of course I'm talking about social security numbers, birthdays, driver's license, credit cards, anything that can be used for either identity theft or financial theft. So the things I'm going to talk about are ways to get the information, ways to store the information, and then a few other things to keep in mind. So one of the big challenges she has is getting information from someone that she doesn't really know. If you know the person and they're local, of course you can meet in person physically, and that is the best way to get information. That's the best way to hand it off, because then there's no transfer anywhere over the internet. But that's not feasible in most cases. Unfortunately, a lot of people use email and texting in order to get information, and that's a horrible way to do it. It's the most insecure way to transfer this information. If you are going to use the internet to do this or some remote method, the best way is to use encryption software where you choose the password and the person receiving knows what the password is ahead of time. You encrypt a file, send it to them, they do whatever they need to do and encrypt it and send it back to you. Now this isn't even feasible in most cases because if it's someone you don't know, you're not going to be able to get the password to them. So the next best thing that can be done is to use some type of secure transfer mechanism via a web browser and using the HTTPS protocol. We're all familiar with that protocol. You may not know you are, but you are. I'm going to show you in a web browser. Here we have Google Chrome, and this is my wife's website for doTERRA, and I made a special page for her that allows someone to choose a file and it gets uploaded to a server and encrypted on the server. She will then log in using a password and login account that only she knows, and once again download the file securely using HTTPS. How do we know it's HTTPS? If we look up here in the top left, I've highlighted it in blue, it says HTTPS, and on the left we see a little lock. All browsers are different with how they report it. Some web browsers might show a little green lock. Some might not even say HTTPS, they may just say secure, but you need to make sure that it says it's secure. If there's any issues with the digital certificate that's on the server, you're going to have a problem with it and the web browser will report it to you. And in that case, don't do the upload. But since this is secured, this is now encrypting the traffic from your computer to the server. Now once it lands on the server, you really don't know how well it's being encrypted to be stored there. In my case, since I developed the software, I know it's secure and encrypted. But with other vendors, we hear all the time about information being stolen. Even the big companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, constantly being broken into. So anyway, in the example of my software and how easy it is to use, you just choose a file. So the person, I'm acting like I'm the client now, they would just have either a document that they scan through a scanner, or maybe they take a picture on their phone and they can pull up from any web browser this URL and choose the file that they took a picture of. And in my case, I'm acting like I have a Word document here. So I just open it, I hit submit, and once it uploads to the server, then it'll tell us the save is complete. Save complete. So now it's sitting on the server. It's encrypted with a password that only my wife Lori knows what it is. So she's the only one that can retrieve those files and access the information. So that's the second best way. If you don't put forth the effort to find a vendor or find somebody that can do this type of service, then the next thing would be to fall back to some unsecure ways. And there is a priority on these. The best thing to do is to have them send something via snail mail. That is the most secure way to transfer something not encrypted. If you can't do that, or you're under a time crunch, then having them fax it to a direct line where you have direct access is best. Now you can't run this through a fax that's on the internet somewhere, because there are fax services. I'm talking about old-fashioned fax machines that receive the information. If you're using a fax service that encrypts it on the server, it's pretty good, but keep in mind that the IT staff for that fax company can have access to whatever has been faxed. That's why I'm saying it's better for them to fax directly to you than for it to go through a middleman. If you can't do faxing, then the next best thing is the phone. Just using a straight phone call. I'm not talking about text, I'm talking about voice phone call. Even that, again, has middlemen or someone that can be impersonating, but that's much harder to do. It's a lot less likely that hackers are going to filter through all that to find just one person's information. It's possible, but it's probably not likely. If the person doesn't want to speak over the phone or that's not feasible, then texting is next. But keep in mind, texting is awful. You don't want to be using this method. It's the only thing that's worse is email. Email's at the bottom of the barrel. That's absolute worst way to send information. Text is really close. It's also a terrible way to do it because of all the middlemen that can access this information, and it's not encrypted. So that's my advice on how to get information. Now once you get it, what do you do with it? Well, the secure way is, let's say you got it in person, someone gives you paper. Of course this is common sense, but you want to put it in a safe that you can physically lock, or at least a filing cabinet you can lock, something that's secure in case you have a break-in and somebody can't go through all the files and get that information. If you did not get a paper copy or you didn't put it on your phone or whatever in person, and you received it, like let's say you downloaded it from the secured server, keep in mind once you download it, it's no longer encrypted. It's sitting on your computer unencrypted. So I recommend getting some type of encryption software to encrypt it with a password that only you know about, and then you can safely store it on your computer or your phone or whatever other device you use. My software does that. It's called ES Encrypt, but there's all kinds of others out there as well. So just find one that does what's called AES encryption, 256-bit, and make sure that you can provide the password. Now, as far as passwords, make sure that they're at least 12 characters in length, that they have numbers, characters like letters, as well as special characters like @ symbols, $signs, percent signs, things of that nature. Now, someone might be like, well, how am I going to remember a password that long? What I tell people to do is use a phrase like fried green tomatoes, and then in the phrase put some random numbers or numbers that you know about, like maybe it's your birth year, maybe it's the number of kids you have, whatever it is. Mix numbers in between, and then put a special character to somewhere in between the letters of those words. So for example, in fried, I could choose position 3, so I'd do FR $, and then finish the word fried, IED, and then maybe I'll put some numbers like 77 green tomatoes. That password is so long, it's not a word in the dictionary, so it can't be dictionary attacked, and it'll be pretty darn secure, so you won't have to worry about it getting hacked. Okay, so that's how you want to store the files when they're at rest. Then you can store them indefinitely. Now, once you are done with the file, let's say you open it up and you're processing the information. Well, when you open it, you've decrypted it. So it's once again sitting on your hard drive decrypted, or at least the copy is sitting on your hard drive. When you're done with it, you need to electronically shred that decrypted file. The reason why you need to shred it is because if you do just a simple delete, there are ways to undelete files and get back the contents. Even if you empty your recycle bin, your trash can, or whatever, the real contents of that file is still hidden on the hard drive. It's just the operating system doesn't keep track of it anymore. I've retrieved numerous files for clients over the years that have deleted files, and they thought all hope was lost, and I was able to get it back. So it's not a guarantee that you can get it back, but a lot of times you can. So that's the secure way to store this electronic information. If you have a hard drive, like let's say a USB external hard drive that you plug in, and it tells you that it uses hardware encryption, that's not secure to store information. The reason is once you turn that computer on and you have typed in a password that allows the operating system to access the files on there, if you're using any kind of cloud backup storage, it transfers all the data off that hard drive unencrypted because it is not encryption at rest. It's all decrypted in memory. So you need to use special software that decrypts the file at rest. Again, hardware encryption does not do that. Hardware encryption will protect you from thieves that physically break in and steal the hard drive and run off with it. So that's better than nothing, but it is not as good as using some type of software that does file encryption. Okay, and then finally, a lot of people do this, but it's absolutely a terrible practice, is to store passwords, social security information, whatever, inside like a spreadsheet, just sitting on your hard drive. It's awful. Not only do cloud backups then get that information and now it's floating out there on a server somewhere, but anybody that would hack into your computer has access. If your computer gets physically stolen, if you get malware that spies and uploads your files, it's all unencrypted. So terrible practice, don't do it. So that's all the advice I'm going to give on how to get information and how to store it. Now, one other caveat I want to talk about is keep in mind that even if you're using encryption, if you're not careful with how you use your computer or your device and you get malware or an infection on it, they can sometimes install what's called a keyboard sniffer, which monitors your keystrokes. If you have that on your computer and you don't know it, it doesn't matter how long your password is, how great your password is. Some hacker now has the ability to steal your passwords and find out what you're typing in and get all your data. It's not likely for this to happen to you, but it does happen. And it's obviously severe when it does. So if you truly want to be protected, what I recommend is attending one of my cybersecurity seminars or someone else's so that you can really understand all the threats out there and know how to protect yourself from them. So I hope that this helps you decide how to store your information and collect it. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. You can email me at info@everlastsoftware.com, or you can visit my website, everlastsoftware.com, and find my contact information on there. So take care, guys, and I wish you well.